Susana Sáenz, and I am truly honored to be here. I want to thank the North Capital Forum and US-Mexico Foundation for the invitation, for considering White Paper and Meta to be partners in communicating the importance of cooperation between Mexico, the US, and Canada in different terms. In this case, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, and I am glad to introduce Jimena Pardo from High Ventures, David Jiménez from Softtek, and Pedro Pavón from Meta. And well, we know that all of you represent companies that are setting a precedent in the field of artificial intelligence, marking a significant shift in technology and business towards making AI accessible for everyone. So I would like to start with each of you sharing from your perspectives about the power of making AI accessible to everyone.
So hi, I'm Jimena. As she mentioned, I'm managing partner at High Ventures. We're an early stage VC fund that invests through all of LATAM in amazing founders solving the greatest problems in Latin America. Our newest fund, that is the fourth fund, it's a $100 million fund that invests in AI, trying to solve the hardest problems in Latin America. So what we invest in, and I think this let me take you above from everything that is AI, and later on all the hard things will be to my co-panelists. We invest in the application layer. So just to describe it, we have the hardware that we all know, NVIDIA, and I hope you have some shares in the public market and you're happy about it. So that's the hardware, these are the CPUs, and they produce computational power. Then we have the foundational models that I leave that to Meta and Llama, that are basically the algorithms that make this work. And then we have the application layer, and that's where we invest in. The application layer is how do we use this technology in order to resolve and make better the lives of the people in Latin America. And in the application layer, we have found two ways in which AI is shifting everything. It doesn't matter if you're a founder in Buenos Aires, in Bogotá, in Mexico City, in Palo Alto, in New York, you have to be building technology with AI. In one hand, because it will allow you to go faster and to build more efficiently. And in the other hand, it will make your product a better product for your end-up user. So you need to have both of them. And I think that's the intro.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm from Softtek, so just I think I'll share a different point of view, which is from our customers. We are a technology services company, headquartered out of Monterrey, but with operations in all of the Americas, Europe, and Asia. And I can talk about where our clients are and how they're trying to adopt this technology, and also in terms of talent. We have not as many people as Meta, but we have 15,000 people across the globe. And probably what I can share is the difference of adoption in different countries. But first, in terms of clients, I think as all of you know, everyone is super bullish on the technology, on what the technology is going to do in terms of productivity, in terms of changing the landscape of work as we know it today. But clients are still at a stage of understanding how to use it and where to use it. There are the obvious use cases of in their IT arena and productivity in development, in testing and velocity and all of that, in finance, of course. But they are still at a stage of where can we really impact our business, and the other thing is how do we start adopting it? How do we bring it across the organization so that everyone can start using it? I think we are still at a very early stage there. And in terms of talent, I think in terms of talent and in terms of people, I don't want to say concerning, because I think we all are very positive on the technology, but the call to action is how do we prepare the talent so that they can really adopt these technologies. And I mean that from a country perspective, right? From the different countries, how do we have a plan together to make sure that we're ready for that adoption?
Well, now we will talk about that later. But then, Pedro.
Yeah, look, I think the spirit of your question, if I understood it right, was like, what benefits does wide adoption of AI bring to the world? Meta's driving two aggressive engines to drive adoption. One is we're integrating AI tools into all of our platforms where people go every day: Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. Right? That integration is designed to put AI in the hands of every person who uses our products at no cost. The other big engine driver is our Llama models and making those available open source for developers to use at no cost. One of the best ways for people to get people to use stuff is to give it away for free. And so the company's got a pretty firm philosophy, as I'm sure many of you have heard Mark talk about this. Our intent with our research and development and our deployment of all of these technologies is to put it in the hands of people who are going to use it for good. And we want to put it into as many of those hands as we can, as quickly as we can. That's hard to do. And to your point, we have a lot of people, a lot of talent, a lot of treasure invested in making this happen. And I think, Meta is well positioned to do that because of where we sit in the lives of most people and where we sit in sort of like a hybrid commercial space between what people do in their personal lives and how they interact with their jobs and with businesses all around the world. So I think I'm a big believer, and I know Meta as a company is, and the best way to get people to use stuff is to give it to them and put it in places where they go. And, that's the company mission right now, and we're fully behind it. There's one more little element, which is not just putting it in digital spaces, but putting it in physical spaces. I'm wearing a pair of glasses right now that has Meta AI integrated into it. It's turned off. Everybody be cool. It's turned off. But, I can ask it questions and I can interact with it. And I've been in Mexico City many times, but just yesterday, the day before yesterday, I was walking around and the city was basically closed because it was the inauguration and all the stuff. But I started experimenting with it. But I was asking the glasses to translate signage that I would come across as I walked through the city from Spanish to English. And it was doing it for me in real time.
Wow.
This is just like one example of a really cool application that can transform people's lives. I go to Japan often. I don't speak Japanese. Mm-hmm. I don't have any fucking clue what I'm doing when I'm there. This tool is going to change my next trip completely. I'm going to have a completely different, better, more integrated experience. So we're not giving these away for free, but we're trying to keep the cost as low as possible to put it into as many people's hands as possible.
How many users do you have nowadays of this technology?
The glasses, I'm not sure, but I think of like all of our tools collectively across all the platforms. The last number I saw was about 500 million monthly active users, which is pretty aggressive given how new all of the tools are. There's what people say and what people do. And what we find is that people are using the tool and they're using it for all sorts of use cases. One of the countries that is a leader in adoption of Meta AI on Instagram and Facebook is Mexico. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about making it accessible for everyone. Give it to the most number of people that you could. But at the moment, we see an AI economic divide in which there is a disparity in access to artificial intelligence technologies and its benefits. So how are these open models empowering diverse talents globally and narrowing AI's economic divide?
Okay, I'll start with, and this may be a pushback with my co-panelists, no Pedro, David, but Mexico or Latin America has never been better positioned to take leverage of a technology shift as right now with AI. So let me take you back, when the internet started, we didn't have computers at home. So we were lagging perhaps 10 years behind. And when mobile phones came in, the device was too expensive for the average Mexican. So we were lagging 5 years behind. And then came along Meta with WhatsApp, and thank you, Meta, and everybody got on the internet. In the Sierra Cuicateca, people WhatsApp. And generative AI launches at the same time in the world in a Mexico that is fully internet adopted. So the CTO from cloud.com, which is the 360 real estate startup in Mexico, and the CTO from Zillow, which is the 360 real estate platform for the US, they both started thinking, how am I going to leverage AI at the same time, at the same day? So this is amazing. Finally, Latin America is well positioned to take leverage into this new technology. And the second thing is, it's not a matter of how many people do you have on board. The decks that we're receiving from the startups, they asked me for $2 million, and they're going to hire 2 engineers. 2 years ago, they were going to hire 50, 80 engineers. So today, 1 people can build a whole company with AI.
I don't know if my point came across the wrong way. I'm not disagreeing with that. I agree with the notion that this technology has the power to level the playing field. What I think we really need to do, and this is not in Mexico, I think each country has to do this. It's prepare, and what's going to be the vocation of each country, right? As we have in Querétaro the aerospace industry, I think we should define where we're going to have the Gen AI and the analytics industry that we're really going to put investment in and at a government level, and that should happen for Colombia, for Chile, for Argentina, for any country, right? You see, you go to Asia. I go probably 4 times a year to Asia, and you have these economic zones that are really investing in certain technologies. And I think one we cannot miss is Gen AI. I think we really need to define where we're going to invest and how we're going to do this plan. Government, education, private sector, everyone together.
I think it's interesting because, like, in some markets, like the United States and Europe, like consumption is the big driver of investment. When it's almost the opposite, I think, in Latin America. I think in Latin America, particularly for this technology, I just said there's a lot of Latin Americans using the tools, but they're using them for productivity, for efficiency, to optimize little bits of their life at a time. Now, as a whole, that's going to have a big impact. But the transformative impact, I think that is a tremendous opportunity for Latin America. I do think has to be pushed by government investment. I think like Latin America is like super well suited to be a leader on AI adoption for economic opportunity and economic development, for healthcare improvement, for infrastructure improvement, for education, for agriculture optimization, for urban planning, these types of issues, which are all of our countries face in Latin America, and we could all improve and do better on, require massive amounts of investment, not like consumer adoption, but commercial adoption, enterprise adoption. And one thing that's interesting, we were talking about this before we started, is, you know, where the governments go in Latin America, the big corporations follow, because many of them are owned by the governments, at least in part, or controlled by the government, at least in part. So it is going to be critical for Latin America to be a leader, not just, I agree with you, for massive adoption, bottom up, but also top down. At least that's my view.
Talking about countries and regions, we have a question from the audience. It says, how can the AI strategy of Mexico, the US, and Canada can be aligned to create a development community that benefits the region?
We actually have an example today at the forum. If you have a chance, just check about Deepa Chugnani. I just saw him in the aisle. He's the founder of Nuevo Cargo. So could you raise your hand, whomever has heard of nearshoring, specifically in this forum? I think we've all heard it, right? Like, it's been the word of perhaps the last 24 months in Mexico.
Yeah.
And what Nuevo Cargo is doing, it's a freight forwarder platform that helps the transit in the US and Mexican border. And that is a way where AI has this application and can help business and governments to develop. So we have this nearshoring boom. And the nearshoring boom will not only be for car dealerships and for real estate, etc. It will create new opportunities for innovation, such as Nuevo Cargo, that we will be able to leverage with this new technology and build it as fast for this new consumer. So let's think about the border states. They will need higher education. They will need upskills. They will need healthcare. They will need services around these new platforms of nearshoring. and innovation can build it pretty quickly with AI.
No, I think in terms of Canada, US, and Mexico, it's going to happen. We are very intertwined as economies, just like you said, with nearshore. But for the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years, the amount of companies that have a very, very close relationship in their supply chain, I think what Gen AI is going to do is going to be incredible for all of these companies, and I think in terms of productivity, that's going to, of course, shift talent to other more value-added skills or arenas where we are very confident that the impact is going to be enormous.
I'm a lawyer, so I'll take the legal view of this. I think one of the most important things that the government collaborative process between these three countries can do to drive innovation is create complementary rules that allow for innovation to thrive while providing safety and security for human beings. We've seen models for how not to do this well in other parts of the world, not pointing anywhere specific, but maybe Western Europe. So I think government collaboration on rulemaking, insofar as the rules are complementary and are harmonious with each other and allow the transfer of technology and capability through the region seamlessly, is going to be really important. And I think the ways you do that is you focus rulemaking on addressing harms, not on blocking technologies, and on incentivizing responsible behavior by corporate actors.
Yeah, public policy, regulation, but there is a debate about regulating the technology or regulating the use. So, What do you think about this?
I'll let the lawyer answer that.
Focus on use and focus on harm. This would be, if I was speaking to someone drafting a law, I would say, don't focus on regulating the tool, focus on regulating the use of the tool, and then create punitive results if it's misused. This is. We don't deregulate cars. We regulate the use of cars, and we regulate the building of cars. And we should do the same with this technology. I don't think you need to be an innovative lawyer to understand if you block the tool, then nobody can use it.
Okay. And do you think the European Union, for example, it's years ahead from us in regulation? Because we've seen some things at the European Union, we've seen some also proposals at the US, and here in Mexico we are still working on it.
I think there's often a combination of having lots of rules meaning you're ahead. I actually don't think that's how that works, right? Okay. The goal shouldn't be to win by making the rules first or having the most rules. The goal should be developing rules that foster an ecosystem of compliance, responsibility, and innovation. I don't think Europe is the model for how to do that right. And the evidence isn't hard to find. There are companies like mine and Apple and many others that are holding back on releasing these types of technologies in that region. And it really isn't for any reason other than the regulatory framework is so complicated and so cumbersome that you're almost guaranteed to not succeed. That is not a space in which you can build a company from scratch that is going to operate in this area, or you can launch products that millions and millions of people are going to use. And the results are there.
On top of that, if you think about regulation, usually regulators are not in the edge of technology, nor the policymakers, nor the VCs. Right. Usually are the founders, the ones who are on top of it. So technology, it's always beyond the regulation, right? In the venture capital market, we've seen that Europe has been lagging behind in LLM models and some of the new technologies because of regulation. So it's a matter to understand where the governments want to be.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. Like, I'm not advocating for deregulation. I'm advocating for sensible regulation that fosters innovation and punishes bad actors. And if you follow that as a principle guide and you stick to it, it's really hard to create rules that block technologies. But it's really easy to create rules that reduce harm.
Okay. And also, I think the many companies have the will to implement artificial intelligence, right? I mean, how many companies here already started implementing strategies of AI? Okay.
It's not a big number.
Yeah, but maybe some of them want to, but they don't know how to start. Even though they know the benefits, the advantages, they don't know how to start, no? What can you tell us about that?
Our clients are the big companies, right? The likes of Coca-Cola, GE, Constellation Brands, Meta, Alfa, Grupo México. So I would feel very comfortable saying that almost all of them, like high 90% or even 100% of them, do want to implement, do have some initiatives they're talking about. So that first, I think it's on the conversation at a board level and at a technology and at every level, probably. I think we were talking about this earlier. I think a lot of companies are stuck in the how to start. When we consult with them, what we tell them is it's first, it needs to be in the conversation. Okay, that's a check. Then everyone needs to start using it. I always tell them an example of what I do with my kids. Now I don't tell night stories to my daughters. One of my LLMs will do it, and they start prompting. Now I want to have a story about an elephant in Monterrey. And it's talking about a story about an elephant in Monterrey and walking in the streets in Monterrey. So it sounds like it's like stupid example, but the reality is it's a concept of start using it. What's very complicated for people that are not in the industry is how to start prompting to get value. But at the end of the day, there are ways to start doing it, and I think that's first start. And the other thing that we're doing with clients is the concept of small hits. Let's start doing something that you can start presenting across the organization so that you educate the organization on the value given back. For example, in technology, we've seen like 40% increase in productivity. We've seen 2x improvement on prototype to bring something out. We've seen in some use cases even 80% of productivity. So the value is there. What's complicated it's how to get it out, how to start rolling it out in the enterprises. But it's going to come. I'm not worried that it's going to come, and it's going to come very fast.
What do you think, Pedro?
I think everybody would have raised their hand if you said, who has a company phone in your pocket? Or who has a company computer? And because the answer to that is going to be yes by everybody, your company has adopted AI, right? Like there's no scenario in which your company is not using some sort of algorithmic efficiency mechanism. Now, LLMs is a different story. This is what you were focusing on. That scares the enterprise because that is a transformative change where people have to modify their behaviors in order to get the most out of the technology. That is an interactive technology. A lot of the AI that's already used by your companies is passive. It sits in the background and optimizes things for you. The LLM integration is trickier. And you had every point I would have hit, which is for many corporations or organizations, the hardest part is figuring out how to use it and where to adopt it to get the most impact. This is where companies like organizations like yours come in to help people figure out what that is. And I think there will be a massive growth in that middle space between companies like mine that build the tech and the companies that use the tech. And that middle space is going to be like a consultant space that's going to say, here's where the places you can put this to make it the most meaningful for you and make the investment most valuable to you. Along with that is going to come a mandate. It's going to need to come a mandate by the company for employees to use it. If you roll it out and nobody touches it, it's just a cost center, right? And so forcing the behavior change by demonstrating value is going to be a craft that managers and leaders within organizations are going to have to do for the next 10 or 15 years until it's normalized and becomes as easy as a cell phone, right? Like nobody has to train me when I get a new job on how to use my iPhone. In 10 years, nobody's going to have to tell you how to, optimize your LLM interactions at work. But right now, we do have to teach people.
Jimmy, how do you deal with the companies? I mean, you talked about 7 companies that are already working, implementing AI. But how do you see the other companies that haven't started?
Yes, so this is the advantage of the founders and the innovators. And as Mark Sachs used to say, it's build fast and break things.
Don't say that anymore.
I know,
But yes.
I know. I'm a former
Build
meta
fast,
mate, so I am
responsibly.
biased with Pedro and Glenda and Inigo here. But they can build fast and break things. They can be more flexible.
That's right.
And that's a superpower for the incumbents and for the big corporates. And that is an advantage that our founders are taking. And we've seen this, we have different examples. For example, the company that started as a non-AI native, and let me talk to you about Jana. Jana means you are not alone. And it's a chatbot that helps you with your emotional journey. And before generative AI, it used to work with a decision tree that it was huge. Imagine this, it was coded and it was super, super long decision tree, but it wasn't flexible because at the end it was a decision tree. So Jana has had two waves. One was in COVID when we all understood that we needed emotional help and cope with our emotions. And the second one was 2 years ago when Andrea, the founder, incorporated generative AI. And now Jana can provide an individualized journey for each of their users. And we saw the engagement doubled just by placing generative AI. And in this third wave that it's coming is now that Jana was only in Spanish and it was from Mexico, Andrea is from Cancun. It's a beautiful story, by the way. She is a university dropout that in order to cope with her emotions, she taught herself how to code. And in this third wave, suddenly Jana is available in English and in Portuguese, and just with a click. So she's now live in the US and in Brazil, and now she can help more of these young teenagers who were needing Jana as her companions. So this is a beautiful product that she was able to get into the wave. And then in the other side, we have pure plays of AI. One of our companies is called Sensei. And at the end, all the LLMs and all the algorithms and generative AI is moving super faster. And one of the key elements and one of the key modes and one of the key superpowers is data. And unlike the US, where data is open, structured, organized, and you can easily know what your neighbor paid for its apartment, in Latin America and in Mexico, data is a mess. So it's like sitting on a gold mine. And that's what Sensei does. Sensei helps companies to organize their data, get it structured, and then take that superpower in order to sell more, to avoid churns, etc. So we have those two companies in our portfolio, the ones who are keeping up with AI and the ones who are building AI products.
And well, we've seen this boom, this excitement around building AI technology since the launch of ChatGPT. And this has driven, we've seen a recovery on VC. No? For example, in 2021, venture capital funding for AI startups reached approximately $40 billion globally. And yesterday we were talking about this announcement about the investment of SoftBank of $5 billion in OpenAI. So how do you see these strategies? I mean, from your different perspectives, from your companies, not only the investment, but how much time you are investing in develop these technologies for your customers?
The first thing that I would say is all of those news are great for us as customers. Great, incredibly great. I mean, there's, I think, and probably you can correct me, but I think the cost of tokens output reduced in the last like 18 or 19 months 200x, and inputs 100x. So inputs and outputs that you get through your whatever type of Gen AI you're using. I don't think, I might be wrong, but I don't think in the history of anything being sold, there's been that fast of a reduction in cost on any product, on any service, on anything. So that's great for the adoption, right? Cost going down and the amount of products out there and the amount of usage out there, that's the first thing. For customers again, it's those use cases. It's those use cases, finding those use cases, and that's what we're doing, and start building on those.
I think, obviously Meta doesn't receive VC investment, but what I think is a global benefit of all of the investing that's happening right now and all of the startups coming in with sharp knives to build these cool tools and experiment in interesting ways because they have this wave of resources, is that it increases competition. It increases expectations, and it applies pressure, to your point, on cost, meaning user cost, right? This is all good for the market. More competition, lower cost, more players, more experimentation, more investment. As a result of more investment, I think is all generally good. The areas where there's probably still even more opportunity, 7 or 8 companies control a disproportionate amount of the compute power that exists on the planet. And I think that creates some obvious advantages for them, but tremendous disadvantages for small or non-incumbents, right? We'll have to figure out how to balance that better so that there is a bigger door for new players to enter through. And I think that's going to require industry collaboration with government and non-government organizations to figure out what the right balance there is. So as great as all the investment is, I still think there's opportunities for us to do better collectively. And my expectation is that I'm not the only one who's noticed this. So I think we will see action that drives gate opening versus gatekeeping. And that action will probably be driven by government actors.
No, I totally agree. And for us, the thing is, it's hard to keep up. Every week, either Mark or Sam go live and launch something new.
An update.
But at the end, I think the happiest people on earth when they make these announcements is, of course, NVIDIA's CEO, and then the founders.
Sure. And well, let's talk about some social challenges. A report from the World Economic Forum, we were talking about it, estimated that 85 million jobs may be displaced by shifts in labor between humans and machines by 2025. But 97 million new roles may emerge from this technology, no? And to be more adapt to the new division of labor. So how are these models accelerating the development of groundbreaking AI applications that might tackle these social challenges?
So unlike Pedro, I'm not very bullish in government investing in technology, but I do believe what it needs to invest totally is in upskilling people. And this will be a need for the future. And as we mentioned, we all have to learn how to use AI. VCs, we tend to be super optimistic, and sometimes we drink our Kool-Aid. So we do believe that this new technology, and we have to believe that this technology will make the lives of people better, and that this will enhance the human beings. We at High Ventures stands for human innovation. We believe that we will create a superhuman with this technology. And one thing that amazes me, and I was speaking with Sebastián Barrios, which is the CTO of Mercado Libre. Mercado Libre is the biggest tech in Latin America, and he has 15,000 developers working with him in his team. He says that his senior developers are now able to do 3x what they used to do on 2000, and this was only in November 2022. So this is amazing. We can enhance ourselves. We can superpower ourselves, and that's the ideas that we're supporting and that we're founding in High Ventures.
I'm gonna have to come back to my teams and tell them that we're only doing 2x and Mercado Libre is doing 3x. I totally agree with you. I think the name of the game is going to be upskilling and reskilling, and that's the only game in terms of what can happen socially in terms of jobs. The biggest investment that we do in Softtek, it's actually in upskilling and reskilling and our programs, and we call it Softtek University, and it's about training people upskill and reskill and the evolution of their Softekian journey. And I'm optimistic about it. I'm not worried about like job displacement and unemployment because of this technology. But I think companies will need to figure out that upskilling and reskilling. And of course, also universities and government, if government's going to come in or not. I mean, in Mexico, they haven't come in the last too many years. But I think that upskilling and that reskilling is what really is going to change a landscape in a country.
Look, I'm American. Not too long ago, 90% of Americans were farmers. That's obviously not the case in the United States today. It's less than 0.5% of Americans are farmers, right? It is a massive transformation that took place over a relatively short period of time. Now, AI is going to bring on change faster. So we need to get ready more quickly. There are important, I know you're not too high on the policy side of things, but it's going to require proactive public policy movement to ensure that as people can spend less time on administrative jobs and in the operational processes that AI is going to disrupt, that public policy is creating frameworks for enterprise to reward people who change what they spend their time on from those types of tasks to new ones. This is going to be one of the big public policy challenges of the next 10, 20, 30 years. And we're going to need to apply pressure on our governments and on our leaders to focus and pay attention to that.
It's a great challenge because we have to be prepared for this evolution, right? How to protect us. I was reading a book about, it's called Scary Smart, about the future of AI and how to save our world, the humanity from AI, and how to educate not only the people, but the models, no? And this is related also with a question that we have from the audience, from Daniela Div. It says, if there is an AI regulation policy added to the next USMCA negotiation, what should be Mexico's position in it? I mean, talking about data privacy, consumer rights, protecting existing jobs vulnerable to AI, or pushing towards AI innovation in SMEs.
I don't like the frame. I think you said the book said something like how to save ourselves from AI. I think that's a bad framing. Like if I said in 1915, we need to save ourselves from aviation or we need to save ourselves from the Industrial Revolution, people would look at you like you're crazy. And I think like we live in a little bit of a hysterical moment in time where like fear-mongering sells and you can make a lot of noise and get a lot of attention on platforms like the ones that I work for really quickly if you're scaremongering. Look, do we need to focus on ensuring that this revolution happens responsibly and that people are not left behind, especially the marginalized communities that always get left behind? Absolutely. We need to be proactive about that and we need to do the work to make that happen. But what we can't do is get lost in all the bad things. We have to ensure that we always keep our eyes on why we're going through this. And it's not to avoid innovation, it's to preserve the innovation. It's to ensure the innovation serves as many people as much as possible. It's to ensure that AI changes our lives in the ways that we all know it can for the good. And that is what we're actually protecting. We're protecting the technology's ability to serve us the way we hope for by ensuring that the people who build it and the people who sell it and the people who use it are doing so responsibly.
We have another question from Stony Burke, who says, should the Mexican private sector take advantage of their proximity to data centers and invest in their own LLM?
Well, seeing yesterday's news with SoftBank investing $5 billion in OpenAI, I mean, who's got $5 billion in Mexico to invest in another LLM? I don't think for Latin America, the play will be foundational models. It will be more in the application layer. I do believe that the fundamental models are for the big techs and for the big budgets. Yesterday's round, it was the biggest round ever on venture capital and private investments in the world, in the history of the world. And it was to an LLM. And one thing that OpenAI did is that it said to SoftBank, okay, you can invest in me, but you cannot invest in Anthropic, and you cannot invest in Perplexity and the other competitors. So we do believe that it will be centralized on those who can afford it. And eventually it will get commoditized. I mean, we've seen it. Have you tested Meta AI against Claude, against GPT 4.0? And as David mentioned, the cost within has gone super, super, super low. So at the end, this will be a tool to build for the insights of Latin America and for the needs of Latin America, instead of having to build your own.
Okay.
Yeah, so I agree. I think this is a game that it's very high stakes, a lot of money. It's yet to be seen what's going to happen with Claude and with the Anthropics, and are they going to really be able to compete with Meta and with Google and with Nvidia and with OpenAI? So where can we focus as a country and as a region? I think we should be focusing exactly on applications, exactly on services, and on developing talent that can really change the landscape of a country. Just as a quick fact, the automotive industry, and of course I have nothing against the automotive industry because it creates a ton of economic prosperity in Mexico, but the average wage is something like 15,000 pesos a month. In the services, in the technology service sector, it's 5x that, the average. Okay, I'm talking about averages. So if you now go to this type of services, the average income is going to be 3x what I'm talking about the services. So I think that's where to focus as a country or as a region or as emerging markets.
If I can chime in real quick, because I have a really invested point of view in the question. My company spent tens of billions of dollars to release an open source model that anyone can use for free and customize for their particular use case.
You're saying use mine?
Use mine. I think I share in the spirit of the feedback here, which is the cost of building an LLM from scratch is extremely prohibitive. Okay. The application layer is not only where most of the investment is right now, besides the big 7-ish, but also I think, and I agree with you aggressively, is where most of the opportunity is to do something novel, to build the next cool, interesting company. So I think at the app stack layer is where the next, unicorns are. I'd be really surprised if there was another OpenAI-like unicorn. What I do know is that at the application layer, there's probably going to be hundreds of unicorns.
And this question goes for Pime because you're going to be more biased, but as an investor at the agent level, do you care which LLM is used? Is Llama, Mistral, ChatGPT, or other
very careful what you say
for the
here.
Spanish language application level?
Yeah, we promote Llama. No,
Okay.
no, truly, we trust our founders. I mean, those are the experts.
Okay, great. We have another question from the audience that it says, what are some of the most exciting AI applications you're investing in your case? And that's where the real value add is, solutions to a specific business and social problems and so forth.
I'll share one with you. It's called Perhaps. It's called, you can get into the waitlist, getperhaps.com. And it's an application that redefines the way we interact with our LLMs. So we're very used to a conversational LLM, right? Either in Meta AI or in ChatGPT or in Claude. And what redefines Perhaps, it's that it's making a workspace where you can have your email, your documents, your whatever you're working on, your spreadsheet, etc., in a different workspace. And you can actually define and tell the LLM which one to use in order to provide context. I was using it on Monday, and I opened up my email with the bullets I needed in the contract. I opened the contract I had sent, and I opened the contract that I had received. And I just asked the LLM, could you please tell me the difference between the two contracts and if what I asked is within the new contract? And it took the LLM 25 seconds to respond. Of course, I read it. I did not sign right away. But at the end, this is the type of things. I do believe that if we were talking that David's developers are building 2x and Mercado Libre's is 3x. I do believe that the pyme from now it's at least 1.2x of what it used to be 2 years ago.
Of course, more productive. Yeah.
And additionally, this is something that perhaps does very well. They do the arbitrage into understand which LLM works better for each task. So sometimes it will go to to Llama and get it for free. Sometimes we'll use GPT-04. Sometimes we'll use GPT 3.5. Sometimes we'll use Sonnet. And at the end, this will be the end of user doesn't care about which LLM. We don't have the sophistication to understand which one is safer and best at which task. So we just want the answer in a safe way. And that will be what perhaps we'll be promoting. So join the wait list.
Would you like to add something? No.
I can tell you, like, some of the areas of key investment for us internally right now are actually not end user facing, but advertiser and business facing. One of the areas I'm most excited about that I think will have a lot of impact on Latin America is the Gen AI use for creating ads. So if you're a big multinational corporation and you want to show ads on Meta's platforms, you hire an ad agency, an army of professionals that make your creative for you, and then you have these really beautiful, advertisements all over social media. If you're a micro business, like the millions of micro businesses in Mexico, you might want to advertise on Meta to reach your customers, but you don't have the resources to make world-class level creatives like the big enterprises. But you will soon. And that's the coolest thing that I think we're building, where a small company, a micro company, is going to have access to technology that's going to let them show ads that are at the quality on par with the biggest players. That, to me, because I'm a monetization person and an ads guy, is super exciting, because I think the economic opportunity that presents is tremendous. And I don't remember the specific numbers, but some of these technologies are already being tested. And some of the feedback we've gotten from early adopters, small business early adopters, is that they've seen sales increases of like 30, 40%. Click-through rates, which means people interacting with your ads, increased by multiple hundreds of %. This is the potential there that I think is a tremendous equalizer for small businesses, and it's going to provide a lot of economic development. And I'm super excited about it.
We too. Well, and then Duncan Wood from Wilson Center asks if any of you can comment about the energy implications of AI for both the grid and for climate.
I think that I cannot comment on like stats, but that's a challenge. That's the challenge on what's happening, right? The energy usage and the data centers, and it's just insane. Hopefully, and I think it will happen. We're going to see optimization on that side, but I think it's going to take a good probably 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. Look, it's the biggest challenge that the continued innovation will face. There are massive energy requirements to build these models, and there are going to be even bigger energy requirements when they're adopted widely and used by millions and millions of people and millions of companies all over the world, all at the same time. There's a tremendous intersectionality here between this type of technology and energy policy. One of my early jobs when I worked for the U.S. government was at the Department of Energy. And what I think this moment calls for, and you were alluding to it, is a transformation of how we think about energy globally, not just in the United States where I'm from, but around the world, designed to give more access and provide more resources of clean energy for these types of technologies to continue to grow. What I know intuitively is that we can't keep digging holes in the ground and looking for energy. So we're going to have to find another way to do this that's sustainable, that doesn't destroy the communities where these energy resources are cultivated, but that is also usable. We've been talking about this for 50 years, but I think the benefits of this technology and the wide adoption are going to speed up the need to actually follow through.
I'll only add that I think the conversation needs to be how to change the energy sources and not how to restrict this technology. I think this technology is the single biggest transformation that we're going to see, probably at least in my lifetime. And I think the conversation it cannot be how do we restrict it.
Yeah, because you wanted to.
No, we're already started seeing happening. If you Google Microsoft, how a nuclear plant, you'll see that they just reopened a nuclear plant to build a clean energy solution from nuclear.
Because Yana Lukashev also asked that if you are preoccupied by the lack of energy capacity in North America, will it be an impediment to the democratization of AI in the region?
Well, that's another huge challenge, right? But that's not particular to Gen AI. We have not enough energy in a lot of countries for basic things. Forget about manufacturing and forget about transportation and forget about
on the refrigerator.
Just for basic like human things. So, but that's a huge conversation. I think this is starting up of nuclear. I think it's very relevant. Nuclear was like misconceptually thought about the wrong way. It's when done safely, it's one of the cleanest. So and cost efficient. So I think hopefully we'll start tackling that. But that's a huge topic.
No, I agree completely. I don't have much to add. I think you said it, which is AI is not the sole factor of creating the energy crisis. It is a big factor, but it forms part of a much bigger conversation about how to efficiently and safely produce enough energy to meet global demands. I'm not an energy policy expert, but I can look at that problem and know a lot of smart people are paying attention to it. And I think it's up to the companies that require the energy and the citizens that expect the technology to be in their hands to apply pressure to policymakers to ensure that they're doing their job. This is critical. If we don't get it right, energy cost goes up, and we know what that means. Only the most powerful incumbents are going to be able to take advantage of the energy that's available. We don't want that outcome.
Yeah. And well, we also have another challenge. I mean, the digital gap, that is one of the biggest challenges. And how can we promote AI if many people still don't have access to internet? This is a question from Luis de la Hoz.
I think Meta is doing an excellent job on that. As I mentioned, I don't remember, back in my days at Meta, because probably Pedro is not allowed to say that, we had like 90 million people in Mexico using WhatsApp every day, around that. I mean, that's anybody who's at age to use internet. Everybody uses WhatsApp. And WhatsApp has a Meta AI inbox right away. So that means that anybody has access to this agent that can help you understand anything with infinite patience. So that is beautiful. And that is exciting about Meta AI in WhatsApp.
Yeah, look, I can't speak to like internet infrastructure, but your point is WhatsApp is over 100 million, right? Oh, in Mexico, just to be 100 million users. These guys know the numbers. But I think WhatsApp and Facebook Lite app are good examples of tech companies, and happens to be mine, but tech companies where they built the apps in the knowledge that internet infrastructure is limited in many places. One of the beauties of WhatsApp is that it works when you only have that little bar every once in a while. That is one of the beauties of WhatsApp. Yeah. And right, you can't say that about iMessage or a lot of other competitors. And it was designed specifically to do that, so the most people possible could take advantage of it and do so at no additional cost. Every signal I get inside the company is that we'll continue to design products that way. Now, the issue of internet capacity, I leave that to the folks that know, but because I live in a country where that's not a big problem, except in the most rural areas, but it is definitely a problem that requires addressing.
Well, to wrap up this interesting conversation in these last 4 minutes, I would like you to tell us how to weigh the potential risks against open model benefits and explore the strategies to balance collaboration, safety, regulation, innovation, public policy.
No, I will just recommend everyone to start using AI. It's either Meta AI or any other LLM. Start breaking the ice and start to see how can you build faster with it?
That was a huge question too, so I'm gonna kind of avoid it. What I'll say is, I don't like thinking too much about the risks on this technology. I think it's been mentioned from my colleagues many times. I think there are very smart people tackling these things. I think that risk factor or that fear factor is, from my view, very small compared to the huge advantages that this can bring. Okay. Something that you mentioned about like rural places, I think there's also another very big company, Starlink, that's doing amazing things that can bring internet to those types of communities. So I think the way to end this conversation, it's very exciting what's coming. So get your hands on it and start using it, as Jimena said.
Yeah, look, I'll take a company responsibility spin on this. I've spent the whole time saying how cool everything is and how we're trying to put it in everybody's hands. It's all true. But with that comes a tremendous amount of responsibility. We are the big companies, and we are one of the biggest ones, and we have a lot of resources, and we want people to trust and use our products. So in order to do that, we have to build safety into them and invest heavily in that in a way that's meaningful and impactful. The company thinks about this in sort of like 4 big categories. Like one of them is safety and security. I just alluded to that. We have to make sure that people who use our products feel and are actually safe. In order to do that, we have to red team everything. Red teaming basically just means trying to get the thing to do the bad thing so that before we release it, so that when we do, it doesn't behave that way, right? Like we have all of these much smarter people focus on just the safety element of the tools. Okay. Can you get it perfect every time? That's hard, but we're working on that. The other one is privacy. We want people to have control over how we use the information that they share with our AI tools, and we want people to understand how we're using it. So that's the transparency element. The other one is fairness and inclusion, and this is big for Latin America. We don't want to leave people behind. We don't want to use data sets that inherently displace or create bias against certain groups. In order to do that, we have to collaborate with third parties and researchers and academia to ensure that the data sets that we use, including our own to train our models, are inclusive and don't leave people out and don't create outcomes that perpetuate discrimination or inequality. This is responsibilities we have that we take very seriously. And the last element, and I already alluded to it, is this collaboration piece. We have to listen to experts that don't work for Meta, people that are critical of the way we're launching our products, because there's always good ideas in critique. And so that is sort of like the last element that I think the company has embraced philosophically to ensure that we're doing as much as we can to provide the safest products we can.
We can say that you are not worried as journalisms are worried about fake news, for example, because you are trying to work with a lot of people to protect customers, right?
Yeah, look, let me be clear. We're worried. Everybody's worried about the possibility of the technology being misused or creating outcomes that generate problems or harms. That's why we're doing the things that I'm suggesting. It's because we know the consequences when we don't, when we fall short. Will there be new harms in the future? Yes. This is what happens when airplanes still fall out of the sky, and they've been up in the sky for 150 years. Yeah. The way to move forward responsibly is to ensure that every company investing in this space is investing in the components that increase safety, increase fairness, increase transparency, and increase trust. If we do it that way, we can mitigate unnecessary avoidable harms, and then we can address harms that do come up because they will quickly.
Yeah, transparency and trust, I think they are keys.
I agree with you.
Well, thank you very much for talking with us with North Capital Forum about AI. It was a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.